The collapse in the interview room. The lobby of Merrifield Dynamics was nothing like she expected. Elena Reyes had seen pictures of the headquarters online, glossy promotional photos that showed smiling employees and sleek architecture. But in person, the building was something else entirely. It towered above the city like a monument of metal and glass, polished so clean it reflected the morning sun in blinding streaks. Massive pillars framed the entrance, and flowing water fountains lined the walkway like a luxury hotel rather than a corporate office. People passed by Elena in tailored suits, expensive watches, designer heels clicking against marble floors, moving with confidence she wished she possessed. She clutched her resume folder tightly, trying to stop her hands from shaking. Her heartbeat was loud, her breathing shallow. She kept reminding herself that she belonged here, that her qualifications were real, but the whispers in the back of her mind kept returning. You're just a waitress. You don't belong in a place like this. Someone like you will never get hired. Elena had been working double shifts at a small roadside diner for nearly 4 years, serving coffee, wiping counters, and listening to customers complain about their toast being too toasted or their eggs being too egg-like. But that job paid rent, supported her grandmother's medication, and helped her save every spare dollar until she finally finished a degree in business analytics through online night classes. This interview was supposed to be her step into a new life. A future where she didn't reek of fryer grease when she got home. A future where she wasn't yelled at for someone else's mistake. A future where she didn't worry about eviction notices or electricity bills, or choosing between groceries and utilities. She inhaled slowly, standing just inside the building, letting the cool air conditioning wash over her skin. Her reflection in the glass showed a girl who tried. A neat blouse, black skirt, borrowed blazer one size too big, hair tied in a clean ponytail. Not glamorous, not wealthy, but professional. She whispered to herself, I earned this. I deserve to be here. But the doubt still lingered, nesting in her chest like a weight. The receptionist barely looked up when Elena approached the marble desk. Yes? She said with the kind of polite boredom that suggested she was used to dealing with much more impressive people. Hi, hello. Good morning, I'm Elena Reyes. I have an interview at 10 for the analyst trainee position. The receptionist scanned Elena briefly. Her cheap shoes, the fraying edge of her folder, and her smile tightened into something polite but dismissive. Oh, right, that position. She typed lazily, nails clacking against keys. Take the elevator to the 35th floor. HR will meet you in the waiting lounge. Elena thanked her and hurried toward the elevators, trying not to feel judged. But she felt it. Every glance from passing employees, every polished outfit that made hers feel small. She tried to straighten her back, lifting her chin, repeating silently, I worked hard for this. I belong here. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped in. Inside, a group of corporate employees stood in small clusters, talking softly. Elena pressed a button for the 35th floor and tucked herself into the corner. As the elevator rose, more people entered. Senior executives, high-level managers, assistants carrying tablets. Among them was a man in a navy blue suit, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a crisp white shirt with cufflinks that screamed wealth. His voice carried naturally, not loud, but commanding. Yes, I saw the earnings report. No, I'm not concerned. We'd pivot now, not later, he said into his phone, voice calm but firm. Reschedule the investor briefing. I'll handle the board personally. Even without looking directly at him, Elena felt his presence. Power radiated from him, not arrogance, but certainty. She didn't dare make eye contact. He looked like someone who owned the building, not someone applying to work inside it. She swallowed hard and tried to focus on her breathing, but something felt wrong. The elevator seemed to grow warmer. Her palms dampened. A tremble started in her knees. She suddenly remembered. She hadn't eaten, not since the previous night's shift. She had been too nervous, too afraid of getting sick, and now the consequences were hitting her. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her heart raced faster. The sound of voices in the elevator merged into muffled echoes. Not now. Please, not now. Not in front of all these people. She blinked rapidly, gripping the handrail. Floor 20. Floor 23. Floor 28. Her breath came out uneven. Her body felt hollow, like she was floating outside herself. Someone near her glanced over with annoyance, as if her unsteady posture was a distraction. "Are you okay?" a woman asked, but the tone lacked concern, more like irritability. "I'm fine," Elena whispered, but she wasn't. Her hands grew numb. Her legs softened. Her hearing faded. The elevator reached 35, and Elena tried to step forward, but her feet wouldn't move. The room tilted. Her vision collapsed into darkness. The last thing she heard was a deep voice, firm, urgent, startled. "Hey, she's fainting. Move." Then everything went black. She woke slowly, as though returning from underwater. The sensation of soft fabric beneath her cheek came first. Something smooth, velvet-like. She felt a cushion beneath her head, a gentle weight supporting her back. Soft lighting filtered through closed lids. She inhaled. The air smelled expensive. Subtle cologne, polished wood, clean leather, not perfume, something refined like cedar and bergamot. She opened her eyes. This was not a hospital, not a reception area, not even a break room. She lay on a long leather sofa inside a massive corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern shelves lined with awards and models of futuristic architecture, abstract art glowing against charcoal walls. The skyline stretched beyond glass walls, sunlight spilling across hardwood floors. This office belonged to someone powerful, someone important, someone far above her pay grade. Elena sat up quickly, cheeks burning with humiliation. "Oh my God, where am I?" "I'm so sorry." "Take it slow. You nearly hit your head." The same deep voice from the elevator. She turned. The man in the navy suit sat beside her, not on a throne-like steel chair, but on the edge of the sofa, sleeves rolled up now, his blazer neatly folded on a nearby table. Without his jacket, he looked more human, less intimidating, yet still impossibly composed. He held a glass of cold juice and extended it toward her. "Drink." Your blood sugar dropped. She hesitated, but he waited patiently, eyes steady, expression calm, not judging, not annoyed, but genuinely concerned. She sipped slowly. The citrus revived her senses. "I'm so embarrassed," Elena whispered. "I don't faint. I swear. I just haven't eaten today. Or yesterday night." His eyebrows lifted, not in disapproval, but understanding. "That would do it," he said gently. "Next time, eat first. No job is worth passing out over." Elena froze. "Job? The interview? I missed it. I'm supposed to be in HR right now." She turned to stand, but dizziness tugged at her again. He placed a steady hand near her shoulder, not touching fully, but offering support. "The interview isn't canceled," he said softly. "Just postponed." Elena blinked. "You talked to them?" His eyes held hers, calm and steady. "I am them." She stared blankly. Then the truth hit. This office, his authority, his presence in the elevator, his phone call about the board. He wasn't just some executive. He was Adrian Merrifield, the CO, the man whose last name was on the building she nearly collapsed in. Her heart pounded in her throat. I passed out in front of the CO," she whispered, mortified. "I must look pathetic. I shouldn't have come. I shouldn't have." "Stop." His tone, though quiet, carried command. "You don't have to apologize for being human." She swallowed, eyes stinging. People rarely treated her like someone whose struggles deserved kindness. He looked at her, not at her clothes, not her cheap shoes, not at the folder that looked small and worn in a room like this, but at her. The way someone looks when they want to understand, not evaluate. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena," she said softly. "Elena Reyes." He nodded slowly, almost thoughtfully, as if committing it to memory. "Elena," he repeated. "Why didn't you eat? Were you rushing? Or something else?" Her throat tightened. She didn't want to admit it, but lying felt pointless. "I couldn't afford breakfast," she said quietly. "My paycheck went to rent and my grandmother's medicine. I thought maybe I could skip one meal. And I didn't want to show up smelling like diner food." She laughed awkwardly, like the truth was some kind of joke she needed to apologize for. He did not laugh. His expression shifted, something between empathy and anger, but not at her. "It's not weakness to struggle," he said. She looked away. People had told her the opposite all her life. "We'll get you something to eat," he said, pulling out his phone. "And then, if you're feeling better, I'll conduct your interview myself." She stared at him. "You what?" "I want to hear your story," he said simply. "And I don't think HR can evaluate someone who just pushed themselves past their limit to be here." Her vision blurred again, not from dizziness, but from emotion. No one had ever said something like that to her. People assumed poverty meant laziness. People assumed waitresses lacked ambition. People assumed struggle meant failure. But he saw effort. He saw resilience. He saw her. "Why?" she whispered, voice cracked. "Because people who fight to get in the door are usually the ones who change the room." The words hit her like warmth spreading through her chest. No one had ever believed in her like that. No one saw her like that. Not until now. She exhaled shakily, wiping her eyes. I want this job more than anything," she admitted. "I want to build something real. I want to prove I'm not just—" "A waitress?" he finished gently. She nodded. "You're not," he said firmly. "You're someone who worked harder than people who were handed opportunities. Don't minimize that." Silence stretched, heavy but healing. In that quiet moment, something shifted. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. A spark of respect. A connection built not on status, but on humanity. And Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope. There was a soft knock at the door. An assistant entered with a tray of soup, bread, and fruit. "Mr. Merrifield, your 11 o'clock board meeting." "Reschedule it," he said without hesitation. "This comes first." Elena's eyes widened. She had no idea she mattered enough to delay an entire board meeting. But he didn't look burdened by the choice. He looked certain. As she ate slowly, strength returning, he sat across from her, not like a CEO evaluating a candidate, but like someone watching carefully, trying to understand who she was beneath the struggle. When she finished, he leaned forward, hands clasped. "Shall we begin?" She took a breath. "Yes." "Then tell me," he said softly, "not who you think you need to be for a job, but who you truly are." Elena lifted her chin. The interview had begun, not in a room of strangers, not in front of a panel, waiting to judge her, but in front of the only person whose decision truly mattered. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she might finally be seen. The interview that wasn't just an interview. Elena sat up straighter on the leather sofa, smoothing her borrowed blazer, as though doing so could erase every moment of embarrassment still lingering in the room. The soup bowl on the coffee table was empty. Her color had returned, and the dizziness no longer pulled at her vision. But inside her chest, nerves fluttered wildly like trapped birds. She had imagined this interview 100 times. Late nights after shifts, lukewarm tea beside her laptop, replaying potential answers again and again. In her fantasies, she stood tall, confident, prepared. She never imagined waking up in the CEO's office, rescued from a fainting spell caused by hunger and anxiety. This was not the story she wanted to tell. Yet somehow, it felt like the beginning of a story she needed. Adrian leaned back slightly, though not far enough to seem detached. His body language was open, attentive. He had no laptop between them, no HR file, no performance metrics. Just a quiet gaze that felt both comforting and intimidating. "Before we begin," he said softly, "I need you to understand something." She swallowed, waiting. "You are not here because I pity you," he said. "You're here because fainting does not erase your qualifications. Talent is not canceled by exhaustion." Heat rose to her eyes again, and she blinked rapidly to keep the tears from spilling. "Okay," she whispered, composing herself. "Let's start." He nodded once, satisfied. "Good." He clasped his hands on his knee. "Tell me about your background, but not the version you write on applications. Tell me what shaped you." Her throat tightened. She had spent years learning to minimize her story, to shrink it into bullet points and polite summaries. Recruiters didn't like personal struggle, They liked polished narratives. But he was asking for honesty. Real honesty. So she took a breath and let herself speak. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of layoffs. She began slowly. My dad lost his job when I was 12. My mom worked 3 shifts in different places. Money was always short. Some days, we ate rice and eggs for every meal for weeks. He listened without interrupting. When I turned 16, I got my first job. Not because I wanted spending money, but because we needed rent. Later, after high school, I couldn't afford college right away. So I worked. First retail, then the diner. Eventually, I saved enough for online classes. She paused. I didn't have mentors. No one told me how to enter the corporate world. But I wanted to learn anyway. Adrian tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing, not in judgment, but in analytical focus. So you taught yourself, he said. That alone sets you apart from most applicants. Elena gave a small, humorless laugh. I don't feel set apart. I feel like I'm always 10 steps behind. That's because you're comparing yourself to people born on the 10th step, he replied calmly. But you started at 0. That matters. His voice was firm, not flattery, but truth spoken like a fact of physics. She exhaled slowly. Thank you, she said. I don't hear that often. No one does, he replied. There was something dark in his eyes for a moment, like he understood being underestimated far more personally than she expected. He shifted the conversation. What do you think analytics means? Not technically, but purpose-wise? Elena straightened. Here, she felt safer. Numbers made sense. Patterns made sense. They didn't judge based on shoes or accents or where you started life. Analytics, she said, choosing her words slowly, is human behavior translated into data. Adrian raised an eyebrow, interested. Elena continued, voice growing steadier. I don't think analytics should just measure numbers. It should reveal why people do things. What makes them stay? What makes them leave? What confuses them? What comforts them? Data isn't just charts, it's stories. Adrian leaned forward slightly, eyes brightening. And whose stories are worth measuring? He asked. All of them, she said without hesitation. Not just rich customers. Not just people living in major cities. The world is bigger than people with credit cards and subscriptions. A slow smile formed on his lips. That philosophy, he said, is why you're sitting in my office. She froze. He said it so casually, as if her place there was never mistake. For a moment, Elena felt her world shift, like the foundation beneath her feet was changing. She belonged here. She earned this moment. But then doubt crept back in. What if HR disagreed? What if employees mocked her? What if her past followed her like a shadow? As if sensing her thoughts, Adrian's tone softened. Someone like you changes companies, he said. You don't just fill roles, you redefine them. She didn't know whether to smile or cry. Before she could respond, the office door opened abruptly. A tall woman in a fitted gray skirt suit marched inside without knocking. Her heels clicked sharply, her posture rigid, her expression annoyed. Mr. Merrifield, she said curtly, we need you for the board review. Finance is waiting. Also, HR has been asking why the candidate failed to show up. Her eyes flicked to Elena, assessing, dismissive, sharp like cut glass. And who is this? Elena felt her stomach drop. She instinctively stood, as though bracing for impact. Adrian's voice remained calm but cold. This is a candidate. The woman blinked, stunned. You brought her here? She asked, disapproval dripping from every word. Without proper screening? Without HR present? Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. She knew that tone too well. That tone belonged to teachers who assumed she was stupid, to customers who assumed she was beneath them, to supervisors who assumed she was replaceable. Adrian's voice hardened subtly. She collapsed. I assisted her. That is not a violation of corporate procedure. The woman pressed her lips into a thin line. Still, she said sharply, this company cannot lower standards. We cannot afford charity hires. We need candidates who look the part, Elena's throat tightened. Looked the part. There it was. Not think well. Not work hard. Not have talent. Looked the part. Her borrowed blazer suddenly felt like costume fabric. Before she could speak, Adrian stood, slowly, deliberately. "Marissa," he said, voice dangerously calm, "do you believe looking the part is a hiring metric?" Marissa hesitated, then lifted her chin. "It's about representation. Clients expect professionalism. Employees must reflect the brand." "And what," he asked, stepping closer, "does our brand represent?" Marissa faltered. "Well, innovation, excellence, and access," he added. "Opportunity, growth. We do not exclude capable minds because they didn't walk in wearing custom tailoring." His tone carried a silent warning. Marissa swallowed, eyes shifting between them. "Of course, sir," she said finally. "Do whatever you believe is best." She turned, heels clicking, and exited, though not without a pointed glance at Elena, a silent message. "You don't belong here." Elena felt her hands tremble. She exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to cause." "No," Adrian said, cutting gently across her apology. "Do not shrink to make other people comfortable." Her breath caught. "She spoke like you were a burden," he added softly. "You are not." The words struck her deeper than they should have. People like her grew used to apologizing simply for being present. Adrian sat again, his tone returning to business. "We'll continue later," he said. "I need to speak with the board. But before I go," he reached toward a small stack of documents on the table. "These are case studies, real company data. I want you to review them while I'm gone." Her heart jumped. "What should I prepare?" she asked. He held her gaze. "Not a presentation," he said. "A perspective." Then he rose and buttoned his jacket. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "And Elena?" he said without turning fully. "Yes." "Stop apologizing for existing. It's exhausting to watch." Despite everything, she laughed, caught off guard, warm, real. "I'll try," she murmured. "Good," he replied. "When I come back, show me why you deserve to be here. Not with perfection, but with honesty." She nodded. "I will." He closed the door behind him. The room fell silent. Elena looked at the documents, spreading them across the coffee table. Financial trends, user engagement, drop-off rates, customer complaints. Patterns emerged instantly. Numbers didn't scare her. They made sense. But her thoughts kept circling back to the confrontation with Marissa. She had been judged by outfits, not intelligence. By class, not capability. By appearance, not potential. And she knew this wasn't new, just louder here. This is what every room will expect from you, she thought, not to earn a place, but to prove you deserve not be removed. She inhaled deeply. "I belong here," she whispered under her breath. "I belong here." The words began as hope, then solidified into belief. 20 minutes later, the office door opened again, but not with the slow, measured entrance of Adrian Merrifield. A different woman entered, the receptionist from earlier, holding a stack of forms. She froze when she saw Elena inside the CEO's office, alone. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply. Elena opened her mouth to explain, but the receptionist cut in. "This area is restricted. Intern candidates are not allowed in executive spaces unsupervised." Intern. Again. People always assume the lowest version of her. "I'm here for the analyst interview," Elena said quietly. The receptionist blinked, then smirked. "In this office?" "Right. And I'm the president." Elena clenched her jaw. Don't react. Don't break. Don't show pain. Instead, she looked directly at her. "I didn't walk in here," Elena said calmly. "I was brought here." The receptionist rolled her eyes. "By who?" "Security." "By the CO." Elena said. The room went silent. The woman laughed, disbelieving, rude, mocking. "The CEO does not personally escort applicants from the public." Elena stared at her until the laughter died. "I fainted in the elevator," she explained quietly. "He helped me." He rescheduled the interview. The receptionist's face shifted, but not to sympathy, to annoyance. "Oh, so you're that girl." That girl. A title heavy with disdain. "You caused delays," she continued. "You should have eaten and acted professional." Elena felt her chest tighten. The shame rose again, but this time it met something stronger inside her. "I am acting professional," Elena said softly. "You just don't recognize professionalism when it doesn't look like privilege." The receptionist's expression hardened. "I'll be reporting this to HR," she snapped. Elena didn't flinch. "Go ahead." That confidence surprised even herself. The receptionist huffed and stormed out. Elena exhaled shaky breath, not because she feared consequences, but because she feared how many battles like this awaited her. But she'd fight them. She was done shrinking. An hour passed before Adrian returned, closing the door behind him with a frustrated sigh. "The board," he muttered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "They want short-term gains instead of long-term strategy. It's exhausting." He sat beside her again. "What do you see?" he asked, nodding at the spread of data. Elena straightened and began explaining, not reading notes, but speaking from instinct. "This drop-off here isn't financial," she said, pointing. "It's emotional. People don't trust a platform because onboarding feels rigid. They feel like numbers, not humans." He blinked, startled. "That's exactly what I told them," he said. "They refused to listen." She continued, sliding another chart forward. "Fix the UI flow, add real-world guidance, make tutorials personal. Instead of telling users how to use the system, tell them why it helps them. That changes loyalty." He stared at her, not like she was correct, but like he was witnessing something valuable. "You see what others overlook," he murmured. She shook her head. "I just understand people who need help, because I've been one of them." His expression softened. "That," he said, "is what leadership looks like." Her breath caught. No one had ever used that word about her. Not at school, not at work, not in life. Leadership. Her eyes burned again, but this time from gratitude, not pain. He stood, offering his hand. "Elena," he said softly, "welcome to Merrifield Dynamics." Her heart nearly stopped. Does that mean—" "You're hired," he said simply. She stared, stunned. "But HR, your board, your team, they'll adapt." He said it with quiet certainty, the kind that did not ask permission. She rose slowly, shaking his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You earned it," he replied. "I just noticed." Before she left, he added one more thing, voice lower, tone gentler. "You don't need to pretend to be someone else to belong here. You belong as you are." Her breath trembled. "Then I'll stay that way," she said. He smiled. "Good, because you're going to change things more than you realize." She stepped into the hallway, past glass windows, past polished floors, past whispers of people who once doubted her, with her offer letter in hand, with her future opening, with her head held high. And as the elevator doors closed behind her, she knew this was only the beginning. The day they tried to break her, Elena woke before the sun, long before the city alarm started ringing and office windows lit up like stars. Her small apartment kitchen smelled faintly of warm bread and boiled coffee, though her grandmother slept silently in the next room, wrapped in thin blankets and dreams that seemed heavier than her frail body. Elena tied her hair back, packed leftover food into a small lunchbox, and slipped her grandmother's worn rosary into her bag. Not because she was devout, but because it reminded her where she came from. Today was her first official day at Merrifield Dynamics. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting her blazer for the 10th time. It was still borrowed, still slightly too big, still not the kind of outfit corporate women wore on magazine covers. But she wasn't dressing to impress them anymore. She was dressed in honor of the girl who worked double shifts to buy textbooks, the girl who washed uniforms at midnight, the girl who fainted in an elevator and still stood back up. She whispered to her reflection, steady and low, "You deserve this." Then she left for the bus stop, city lights reflecting in puddles like tiny galaxies. Inside the building, she moved through the lobby with more confidence than before, though she still caught lingering stares. People whispered, Quiet enough to pretend it wasn't deliberate, loud enough that she heard. That's her. The one he brought upstairs. Looks like she came from a thrift store. Did she cry to get hired? She ignored them, though each comment stabbed like tiny needles. She took the elevator to the 19th floor, where the data strategy department was located. The doors opened to a room filled with glass-walled meeting spaces, high desks, and employees typing on ultra-thin monitors that probably cost more than her year's rent. A woman in her mid-30s with perfect posture and a white blouse approached. "Name?" "Elena Reyes," she said with a smile. "Starting today. Junior analyst." The woman hesitated before forcing a polite smile. "Yes, right. The CEO's personal candidate." The phrase felt like a label, not a compliment, as though she was not hired for talent, but favoritism. "This way," the woman said, turning sharply. "Your desk is temporary until HR finalizes your contract." Temporary, not welcome, conditional. Elena followed her to a small workstation near the corner. Clean, but isolated from the main cluster of desks. It felt less like a place of collaboration and more like a holding cell. A few analysts glanced over, whispering. One laughed under his breath. Another raised an eyebrow as though expecting her to spill food on the carpet. "They think I don't belong," Elena realized. Not because she failed, but because she succeeded. The woman, whose badge read Tiana Mills, handed Elena a printed schedule. "We expect punctuality," she said. "Corporate etiquette. Professional communication. And please avoid personal conversations with executives, especially Mr. Merrifield." Elena blinked. "I wasn't planning to bother him." "Good," Tiana said sharply. "We wouldn't want misunderstandings." There was again, not subtle, not accidental, a warning to know her place. She nodded politely. "I'm here to work," Elena replied. "Nothing more." Tiana gave a strained smile that did not reach her eyes. "We'll see." Then she walked away. For the first few hours, Elena focused on numbers, patterns, user surveys, platform retention rates. Her shoulders relaxed as familiar logic wrapped around her like a blanket. Numbers didn't judge her clothes. Graphs didn't question her worth. Analytics didn't care where she came from. She lost herself in the process, typing quietly, headphones in, heart steady. She didn't notice the co-worker looming behind her until he spoke loudly enough to startle her. "So it's true. The charity case really got hired." Elena turned to see a man with slick back hair and a badge reading Grant Wilford, leaning against the side of her desk with a smirk that belonged in high school hallways. She forced a neutral tone. "I'm not a charity case. I was interviewed like everyone else." Grant chuckled. "You fainted during the interview, didn't you? That's what everyone's saying." Elena's face flushed. "That has nothing to do with my qualifications." "Oh, I'm sure it doesn't," he said in a tone dripping with sarcasm. "Look, I'm just saying, some people work hard to get here. Others get carried." She knew what he meant. Carried into the CEO's arms. Carried into the office. Carried into a job. He leaned closer, lowering his voice with insulting condescension. "You might want to keep your head down. People don't like shortcuts." She met his eyes, steady, unfaltering. "You don't know anything about me," she said softly. He scoffed. "I know enough to see you'll be gone in a month." He pushed off her desk and walked away, leaving Elena sitting rigid, fingers curled into fists beneath the desk. She took a long breath. Not everyone will accept you. Some will work to destroy you. But she wasn't leaving. Not now. Not after everything. Later in the afternoon, a message popped up on her screen from Tiana. "Meeting. Conference room B." Now. Elena hurried to the room, heart racing. Inside, half a dozen analysts sat around a table, including Grant, who smirked the moment she entered. Tiana stood at the front, arms crossed. "This meeting is to review the onboarding expectations for new staff," she said. "We will not be lowering standards." She looked directly at Elena as she spoke. "And we expect professionalism from everyone." Grant leaned close to another analyst and whispered loudly enough to be heard. "Professionalism? Maybe she'll faint again." The table erupted in muffled laughter. Elena stared at the papers before her, vision burning, not with weakness, but humiliation. Tiana continued. Every new analyst presents a report on their first day. Elena, yours? Elena froze. No one told her about a report. Her schedule listed training modules, not presentations. Grant raised a triumphantly smug eyebrow. He knew exactly what this was. An ambush. Tiana tapped her folder. We assumed you would be prepared. Elena inhaled, steadying herself. I actually did prepare something, she said calmly. The room hushed as she pulled out the case analysis from Adrian's office, the data she had studied earlier. She stood, placing the papers on the table. I'd like to talk about user abandonment patterns. The issue isn't the platform, it's trust. When people feel overwhelmed, they leave. When they feel guided, they stay. She moved around the table, pointing to graphs she had annotated by hand. People don't drop off because they dislike the product. They drop off because they feel alone. The room grew still. Even Tiana paused. Elena continued. If we use personalized onboarding, storytelling prompts, and emotional UI language, retention rises. Because people want connection, not tools. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Grant scoffed. So you're saying feelings are analytics now? Elena met his gaze. Yes, she said firmly. Human beings are emotional before they are statistical. Tiana cleared her throat, discomfort visible. Interesting but speculative. No, Elena replied, sliding forward supporting data. Test group results show retention increased 17% when we humanize instructions. The analysts murmured among themselves. Impressed. Grant's smirk faded. Tiana glanced at the papers again, this time without dismissiveness. Fine, she said. We'll review this. Elena nodded, sitting slowly. Her heart pounded. She hadn't destroyed them. She had proved she deserved to be in the room. But she knew this was just the first of many battles. Hours later, as desks emptied and lights dimmed on the floor, Elena stayed late, finishing documentation others left undone. She didn't want thanks. She wanted results. She slipped on her bag and headed toward the elevator, exhausted. As she waited, she noticed Adrian walking down the hallway toward her, jacket off, tie loosened, looking like the day had drained him too. He stopped when he saw her. You're still here, he said, surprised. So are you, she replied softly. He smiled faintly. Boards don't rest. Neither do responsibilities. They stood beside each other as the elevator doors opened, not speaking, not awkward, just silent understanding. He pressed the elevator button, but before the doors closed, someone rushed up. Grant. He stepped inside, acknowledging Adrian with a polite, rehearsed smile, then glancing at Elena like she was invisible. Evening, Mr. Merrifield, he said. I'll have the report ready tomorrow. Good, Adrian replied. Grant shifted, adjusting his suit. If you need a lead on the new retention initiative, I'd be happy to take point. Elena's breath froze. He was taking credit for her work. Adrian turned slowly. Retention initiative? He asked. Grant nodded confidently. Yes, the onboarding improvements. My concept. Elena stared at him, stunned. He looked straight ahead, refusing to meet her eyes. She inhaled sharply, anger rising, courage rising with it. It wasn't your idea, she said quietly. Grant blinked. Shocked she spoke. That came from my analysis, she continued. I presented it in the meeting. Adrian looked between them. Grant forced a laugh. Oh, she had thoughts. I structured it into something usable. No apology, no shame, just entitlement. Elena held her ground. You took my work, she said plainly. Don't rewrite reality. Grant sneered. It's not theft if you needed help refining it. I didn't, she said, and you know that. Tension thickened in the elevator. Adrian's voice cut through it. Grant. Grant straightened, eager. Yes. That initiative will be managed by Elena, Adrian said. Report to her if she asks. Grant's face drained of color. I report to her? Yes, Adrian said calmly. Respectfully. Grant sputtered. She's the new hire. And you, Adrian said slowly, are behaving like one. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. Grant stepped out, stiff, humiliated, jaw tight with resentment. Elena remained rooted in place, stunned. She turned to Adrian. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, he replied. I did. She swallowed. He'll hate me now. Adrian looked directly into her eyes, tone soft but unwavering. People don't hate you because you're wrong, he said. They hate you because you're right, and they can't stand that someone like you can be. The elevator doors closed again. Silence held them. But something had changed. Respect deepened. Trust deepened. Connection deepened. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rising. And even though the world pushed back, she would keep rising. Because she finally understood something. She wasn't lucky to be here. The company was lucky to have her. The night they tried to silence her. The following weeks unfolded like a whirlwind, equal parts thrilling and exhausting. Elena adapted quickly to her new role. Not because the job was easy, but because struggle was familiar territory. Early mornings, late nights, trial and error. None of it scared her. What truly terrified her was the feeling that people were waiting for her to fail. Watching, whispering, taking notes. Her attention project gained momentum faster than she expected. She began testing new onboarding models, conducting interviews with users, gathering emotional feedback, mapping behavior patterns, turning numbers into human stories. Teams that once ignored her now asked questions cautiously, though some only pretended to listen. By the third week, her findings were undeniable. User engagement increased. Retention numbers climbed. Customer satisfaction rose. Her initiative worked. Yet the more she succeeded, the more resistance she faced. People respected results, but they resented the person producing them. Late one afternoon, she was in the analytics lab, standing beside a large digital display filled with charts when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Lena Havish, a senior strategist known for elegance, influence, and opinions sharp enough to draw blood. Lena crossed her arms, head tilted. You're making waves, she said, though her tone suggested waves were inconvenient. Elena smiled politely. I'm trying to help the company. That's admirable, Lena replied. But some of us have worked years to earn influence here. It's not appropriate for a newcomer to skip steps. There was resentment dressed as professionalism. I didn't skip anything, Elena said calmly. I worked. That's all. Lena's smile didn't reach her eyes. You're gaining attention from all the wrong people. What do you mean? The board, senior executives, and, she paused, voice lowering, Mr. Merrifield. Elena's stomach tightened. There was nothing inappropriate between her and Adrian, but she knew rumors didn't need truth to spread. They needed only jealousy. Lena leaned closer. Be careful, she whispered. People assume power comes from the work you do. It really comes from the rooms where your name is mentioned. Elena swallowed. And who mentions my name? Lena smirked faintly, turning away. Everyone. Then she left. Elena stood there, heart pounding. She didn't want power. She wanted purpose. Yet purpose itself seemed dangerous in a world built on hierarchy. That evening, while reviewing reports at her desk, Tiana approached with a clipped tone. Elena, we need you in conference room A. Now. The urgency in her voice was sharp enough to draw suspicion. Elena followed, stepping into the room, and froze. Half the department was there. PowerPoints ready. Grant sitting confidently at the head of the table. Lena seated like royalty. Eyes turned toward Elena the second she entered, and the screen displayed. Project presentation. Retention Reform Initiative. Presenter, Grant Wilford. Her project. Her research. Her name nowhere. Grant stood, clearing his throat dramatically. Glad you're here, he said with false kindness. Your contributions will be acknowledged at the end. The end, buried like a footnote. Tiana gestured toward a seat at the far corner, as if placing her out of sight. Elena sat slowly, blood hot beneath her skin. Grant began his presentation, walking through graphics, graphs, and language Elena had personally designed. He even repeated lines she said in the elevator and the meeting weeks ago, word for word. Retention isn't about customer satisfaction, he declared. It's about emotional connection. When people feel seen, they stay. Her chest tightened. He wasn't just stealing ideas. He was stealing her voice. The room nodded approvingly. Analysts took notes. Executives murmured praise. Lena watched smugly, lips curved in satisfaction. Then Elena noticed something. Near the back of the room, silent, observing, unreadable, stood Adrian Merrifield. He hadn't announced himself. He just watched. She felt her heart drum against her ribs. Would he step in? Would he defend her? Would he stay silent? The presentation continued until the final slide, where Grant smiled confidently. This initiative represents a new direction. I propose to be rolled out company-wide and placed under my leadership. The room erupted with applause. Elena felt the sting like fire beneath her skin. Tiana turned to Adrian. What do you think, sir? Grant stood straighter, chest puffed. Adrian stepped forward slowly, hands in pockets. His voice was calm, dangerously calm. It's a good presentation, he said. Impressive work. Grant smiled, triumphant. But it isn't yours. Silence slammed across the room. Grant's expression faltered. Sir, I compiled. This project, Adrian continued evenly, belongs to the person who designed methodology, ran the tests, gathered feedback, and derived insights. He turned to Elena. That person is her. The entire room pivoted toward Elena. She sat frozen, unsure if she should speak. Grant's face flushed crimson. With respect, he sputtered, she'd help. Yes, Adrian agreed. From you and others. But she led it, and credit belongs to the leader. Grant's jaw twitched. She lacks experience. She has clarity, Adrian countered. You have experience. Yet she saw what you missed. Lena lifted her chin, expression stiff. Tiana avoided eye contact. Elena slowly stood, not to fight, but to claim what was already hers. If we continue this, she said, voice steady, we do it as a team, but I won't vanish from my own work. Grant glared. No one wants to erase you. Yes, Elena said softly. They do, but not today. Adrian nodded once. Effective immediately, he announced. Elena will present the project to the board on Thursday. She will lead the rollout strategy. Gasps filled the room. Grant shot up from his chair. You're putting her in front of the board? She'll fail. Elena turned to him, eyes steady. If I fail, she said, it will be on my own effort. Not because someone else stole my chance to try. Grant stared at her with fury and something darker, fear. The meeting ended abruptly. The room emptied. Elena gathered her papers slowly, hands still trembling from adrenaline. She didn't look at Adrian until they were the only two left. He stood near the table, watching her quietly. You didn't have to defend me, she said finally. Yes, he replied softly. I did. She exhaled. I don't want special treatment. That wasn't special treatment, he said gently. That was justice. She looked down at the table, voice low. I'm not used to being defended. His expression softened. You shouldn't have to fight alone. Her heart tightened. Those words meant more than he knew. He paused and spoke more quietly. Are you scared about presenting to the board? She inhaled shakily. Yes, terrified. He smiled a little. Good. She blinked. Good. Fear means a moment matters, he said. If you weren't nervous, there'd be nothing at stake. She laughed weakly. That doesn't make it easier. No, he admitted, but you're not doing this because it's easy. You're doing it because you earned the right to be heard. He stepped closer, not too close, but close enough she felt warmth in the space between them. Elena, he said, voice lower, you belong in rooms where decisions are made. You just forget that sometimes. Her breath trembled. And you remind me? He held her gaze, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. When you need it, he whispered. They both stood still, the air charged with something fragile and dangerous. Not romance. Not yet, but undeniable connection. The kind that grows quietly, then all at once. The following days were chaos. Elena spent nights rehearsing, revising slides, practicing answers to impossible questions. She worked through exhaustion, through fear, through self-doubt. She pushed herself harder than ever, not to prove them wrong, but to prove herself right. Grant watched bitterly from across the department, whispering behind her back, sabotaging details, spreading gossip that bordered on venom. She's just a charity hire. She's sleeping her way up. She cried for sympathy. The words stung, but didn't break her. Each insult became fuel. The morning of the board presentation, she stood outside the conference doors with trembling hands and a calm heart. Adrian approached, adjusting his cuffs. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded, though fear pulsed beneath her skin. "No," she whispered truthfully, "but I'll do it anyway." He smiled, proud, not encouraging. "That's courage." The doors opened. Elena stepped inside. She wasn't the girl from the diner anymore. She wasn't the girl who fainted in an elevator. She wasn't the girl afraid of being seen. She was the girl who deserved the room. She faced the board, lifted her chin, and began, not as someone given opportunity, but as someone who finally took it. The day she finally stood tall. The boardroom was nothing like the conference rooms on the lower floors. It was enormous, circular, with glass walls overlooking the city from the top floor. A long, polished table stretched across the center, surrounded by high-backed chairs where men and women in expensive suits sat like judges in a silent court. They didn't look casual. They didn't look friendly. They looked like people who decided the fate of nations. Elena stood at the front of the room, laptop connected to a massive display screen that reflected graphs and user pathways. She could see her own reflection faintly, in a room filled with people who had never lived a day like hers. Her heart hammered so loudly she could hear nothing else. Adrian stood near the back wall, arms crossed, face composed, watching not like a superior but like an anchor holding her steady through a storm. He gave a faint nod. She inhaled slowly. "I'm ready." She clicked to the first slide and spoke. Her voice trembled at first, barely above a whisper, but not timid, just human. "Most companies measure user retention by numbers," she began. "We measure how long people stay, how often they return, how much they spend." The board members watched, some curious, others indifferent. "But numbers only show the end of the story," she continued, "not the beginning, and not the reason why people leave in the first place." Her voice shifted, stronger, clearer. People don't abandon technology because it fails them. They abandon it because they feel small, lost, or unseen. A murmur rippled across the room. She stepped closer to the screen, pointing to the first graph. This spike represents early sign-ups, but also early exits. It's not a technical problem. It's emotional. She changed slides. When we treat customers like users, they behave like data points. When we treat them like humans, they stay. No one spoke. Good. She pressed on, confidence rising. We tested 3 new onboarding models. One focused on guidance. One focused on narrative. One focused on emotional connection. The results were clear. She displayed the numbers. Engagement, up 14%. Retention, up 17%. Customer trust, up 21%. The board members leaned forward now, paying attention. "This is not theory," she said. "This is proof. We don't need to change what we build. We need to change how people feel when they use it." She paused. "And people feel more loyal when they feel seen." Silence. The good kind. She clicked the final slide, a simple statement. Technology succeeds when people matter. When she finished speaking, there was no applause. The board didn't clap. They never did. They reacted with something much stronger. Respect. A man at the center of the table, older with silver-rimmed glasses, adjusted his cufflinks. "Who trained you?" he asked. "No one," Elena replied. "I learned because I had to." A woman across from him leaned forward. "And what qualifies you to lead this project?" Elena breathed slowly. "Because I live the experience of the people we serve. I understand them not from above, but from beside." There was weight in the room now. Not tension. Transformation. Another board member spoke, voice sharp, Do you intend to replace our existing strategy? No, she answered. I intend to evolve it. The questions continued. Hard ones, strategic ones, the kind meant to break candidates. But Elena did not break. Every challenge made her stronger. Every doubt sharpened her answers. Every test revealed she belonged. By the end, even the sternest board members nodded with approval. When she finally stepped back from the screen, hands shaking with exhaustion and relief, she whispered to herself, "It's done." And then the chairman spoke. "We approve the rollout," he said. "Effective immediately. Analysts will report to Ms. Reyes on implementation." Her breath hitched. Not just approval. Authority. Grant's jaw tightened from across the room. Seated silently as a viewer, no longer the star of the team. He looked like someone whose world was slipping away and he couldn't hold on to it. And Lena, poised and polished, stared at Elena with an expression hard to decode. Envy, respect, and perhaps the first flicker of understanding. Adrian stepped forward now, not with a proud grin, but with a calm statement spoken into the formal silence. "Congratulations," he said. "This is a well-earned success. Not gifted, not saved, not lucky. Earned." She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion swelling in her chest. As people began packing up, Elena gathered her notes quietly. She didn't notice someone approaching until a shadow fell across the table. It was the chairman. "You speak differently than most analysts," he said. She smiled politely. "I'm still learning." "No," he replied. "They speak to impress. You speak to solve." She blinked, startled. He adjusted his glasses, voice lower. "The company needs more people who remember the world outside its walls. Don't forget where you came from." She swallowed. "Never," she said. Then he walked away. Outside the boardroom, the hallway was quiet. The city shimmered through glass walls, sun setting in golden streaks that painted reflections across polished floors. Elena leaned against the wall, letting adrenaline drain from her body, her hands still trembling. She heard footsteps. Adrian approached, hands in pockets, his expression unreadable, neither celebratory nor stern, but something warmer. "You were brilliant," he said softly. She lifted her head. "I was terrified." "Good," he said with a faint smile. "Fear means you cared." She exhaled shakily. "Did you know they would prove it?" He shook his head. "I hoped, but I didn't speak for you. You won them over yourself." She bit the inside of her cheek, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered. He stepped closer, not invading space, but entering a shared moment. "You know," he said quietly, "the first day I saw you, I thought you were going to walk away." "I almost did," she admitted. "What stopped you?" She looked up slowly, eyes meeting his. "You did." The air shifted, warm, fragile, intimate, not romantic in a dramatic sense, but deeply human. Two people who carried different worlds on their shoulders, finding something familiar in each other. Adrian looked away briefly, composing himself. "You changed this company," he said, "and you've only been here a month." "No," she said gently. "You changed it long before I arrived. I'm just adding my piece." He smiled, this time with something like pride mixed with vulnerability. "Don't underestimate your impact." She nodded. "I'm learning." "Good," he whispered. They walked toward the elevator together. The office had mostly emptied. The lights dimmed. Silence wrapped around them like a scene between two chapters. Before stepping into the elevator, she turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you help me?" "That first day? You didn't have to." He paused. "Because I saw a version of myself in you," he said softly. "Someone trying to earn a seat in a room that keeps moving the chairs." Her breath trembled. "Does the room ever stop moving?" He smiled sadly. "No, you just learn to move faster." She nodded slowly. "And now, he said, "you don't chase the room anymore. You shape it." The elevator doors slid open. They stepped inside. Their reflections stood side by side in the mirrored walls. A waitress turned analyst. A CEO who started at the bottom. Two people who understood what it cost to rise. The elevator descended slowly, floors passing like time. Then, softly, she said, "Thank you for seeing me." He looked at her with a quiet intensity. "I didn't see you," he said. "You stood up where everyone could." The elevator opened. She stepped out. He stayed inside, not because he didn't want to leave with her, but because some distances still needed time. She turned, offering a small smile. "See you tomorrow, Adrian." He held her gaze. "See you tomorrow, Elena." The doors closed. Elena stepped out into the cool night air, city lights glowing around her. She walked toward the street, her bag on her shoulder, her future unfolding with every step forward. She wasn't the girl who fainted anymore. She wasn't the girl who apologized for breathing. She wasn't the girl who hid her struggle, so others felt comfortable. She was a woman who stood in a room of power and spoke until they listened. The world hadn't changed. She had. And that was enough to change everything.